Your mic, please.
Yep,
Thank you.
with the mic. Got it, with the mic. Oh, and look, I have called commissioners into existence by coming through the door and starting to talk. Good evening and welcome back to the recess meeting of November 7th, 2024 of the Arlington County Planning Commission. I am Commissioner Steinberger, Chair. Tonight, the Commission will consider the following items: request to adopt an amendment to the Master Transportation Plan, a zoning ordinance amendment and site plan amendment for Crystal Houses 7 and 8. Before we begin, I would like to share a few logistical points for all participants joining the meeting remotely and in person. That mic sound weird. Okay. For presenters and speakers joining us through Microsoft Teams, please keep your phones and other electronic devices muted until you are called upon by the clerk. Please turn off the sound to any devices around you to minimize interference. Please keep your cameras off until the clerk announces your name to speak. When called upon, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is on the meeting command bar at the top of the screen. Neither the moderator nor the clerk have the ability to unmute your mic. Once you have spoken, please mute your mics and turn your cameras off. If you are dialing in by phone to join the meeting, press *6 to unmute. Public speakers will be called upon by the clerk at an assigned time. Pre-registration and email confirmation to speak at tonight's hearing was required. We are not able to accommodate additional speakers. All speakers, virtual and hybrid, will receive 2 minutes to comment as an individual. Only representatives of a county board appointed advisory group, committee, and/or commission will receive a 3-minute time. A timer will be displayed on the screen if speaking virtually, and speakers in person will follow the timer stationed on the podium. Audio of tonight's meeting is available via phone. If commissioners, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity, please reconnect by phone. However, if you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide an audible 30-second warning to wrap up your comments. You will be muted when your time has expired. The meeting chat is active for presenters or commissioners who need technical assistance only. Please do not use the meeting chat for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for further information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Tonight's meeting will be available for review through the YouTube and Microsoft Teams platforms in real time. The links have been provided on the Planning Commission website. The meetings will also be available for review with closed captioning on Comcast Xfinity channels 25 and 1085, Verizon Bias channels 39 and 40 within 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website via a link to YouTube as stated. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. Madam Clerk, please call the first item.
Thank you. Our first item of the evening is a request to adopt an amendment to the MTP, the Master Transportation Plan. We have Allison Jordan to present this item from DES this evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Allison Jordan, and I'm with the Department of Environmental Services. I'm joined by my colleague Adil Chauhan, who is our Facilities Design and Construction Bureau Chief. And virtually, we have our colleague Allison Bullock joining us on behalf of DES Transportation. Tonight, Adil is going to present to you an update on the new street, 26th Street South, and I have a presentation that I will pull up.
Okay. Yeah. Right. All right, I can get started. Thank you, Allison. My name is Adil Chauhan. I'm with the Facilities Design and Construction Bureau within DES. And today I'm here to talk about the request to adopt an amendment to the Master Transportation Plan to add the existing public right-of-way on the 2600 block of Shirlington Road as a street segment named 26th Street South. Currently, Shirlington Road and this particular segment tee into each other, and there's 2 streets that are named 26th Shirlington Road, which causes a lot of confusion. So this proposed amendment will eliminate the confusion at this intersection, which will help the emergency vehicles as well as people looking for those businesses at that location. This change is in conjunction with the opening of our new operations and maintenance facility, which is scheduled to open in December. The address changes do impact DC Rental and CubeSmart, and we have had, they were notified in mid-September. We've also met with them as well. Next slide. So this slide shows the specific street segment in the white, and that's the amendment that we're proposing. Next slide. So here's a timeline. In October, we basically went to the county board and the board approved an amendment, a request to advertise for public hearing. And then today we're here at the Planning Commission meeting. Following that, the board meeting in November will adopt, and then after that, we'll be able to do the street creation. Some other dates, basically on December 10th is when we have the tentative ribbon cutting scheduled for our operations and maintenance facility. And then the buses should be moving into this location shortly thereafter. We have done some extensive outreach. We've reached out to the Green Valley Civic Association. We've held in-person meetings as well. And official letters were sent out to the businesses that are impacted by this change, as well as we've met with the businesses in person as well. And in addition to that, our website has all these things posted onto the website. Again, these are our contact information. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. And the next slide, I think, shows the motion that we're requesting. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but there it is. And I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers?
No.
Okay, I am guessing this was heard by the Transportation Committee. I'm hoping.
Yeah,
It was heard last.
it was. It's not indicated on this, but it was. And there was no discussion, and it was passed unanimously.
Great. Did any other bodies hear this? No, okay, didn't think so. I'm not going to do topics for this one. We're just going to do general discussion. I don't think there's enough to parse this into topics. Would anyone like to be heard on this item? Great. That means you gave a very clear presentation, so thank you. Commissioner Lynn, tell me, since at least the Transportation Commission heard the item, would you be so kind as to make a motion?
Sure. Let me call this up.
It's actually on
Yeah,
your screen.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the County Board adoption of a resolution to amend the Master Transportation Plan map in order to establish a new segment of 26th Street South, departing in an easterly direction from the 2600 block of Shirlington Road, as indicated on the attached map, which is in attachment A.
Second.
Commissioner Sarli with a second. Great. Any discussion of the motion before us? Okay. Oh, Madam Clerk, do we have any virtual commissioners tonight or no?
We do not.
Okay, great. What? No. Commissioner Steiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Sarli.
Right.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger. Aye. The motion passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the second item?
Item number 2 is ZOA-2024-06. This is an ordinance before a site plan amendment to amend, reenact, and recodify an Arlington County zoning article for Crystal City. We have Emma Martin and Rob Gibson to present this item this evening.
Good evening. My name is Emma Martin with the Arlington County Planning Division of CPHD. I'm joined by Matt Matuzik from Planning, who is attending virtually, as well as Rob Gibson from DES. As Giselle mentioned, this is a two-part item with the zoning ordinance amendment first and a site plan amendment for Crystal House 7 and 8, located at 1900 South East Street second. So I will turn it over to Matt for the first part of the presentation. Give me a second to pull it up. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you. And if we can maybe progress to the next slide, number 3. There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. Matt Matuzek with the Planning Division, CPHD. I'm going to cover item 2 on tonight's agenda, which is associated with the following item that we're going to be reviewing. But what I wanted to highlight is really in the process of reviewing the third item, Crystal Houses Site Plan Amendment request, staff identified an inadvertent barrier to realizing the county's envisioned form of development along this western edge of Crystal City Coordinated Redevelopment District. The area in particular represents kind of a transitional zone separating the lower scale neighborhood on the west side of South Fern Street from the properties located to the east, which include taller existing buildings that are also eligible to redevelop with additional density and likely through infill development options. The 2010 Crystal City Sector Plan always envisioned this area to consist of 3-story buildings in relationship to the street and to complement the existing by right residences, which are located just outside of the district to the west. As you read through the sector plan, that guidance is primarily expressed through a building heights map, which you can see here on the screen. And subsequently, it's been adopted in the CO Crystal City zoning district in 2011. The height categories are expressed in terms of maximum feet and are further subject to the zoning ordinance provisions for calculating building height in relationship to the average site elevation for the entire site. And this methodology precludes, however, the ability to effectively address more significant changes in topography, particularly in large sites which are more likely to develop through multiple independent buildings. And Crystal Houses is a perfect example of that. So this slide gives you a sense of not just where the building heights limitations are, but also the topography changes in that western edge of the district. On this slide, we're looking at a very interesting case study where the building itself actually has delivered the 35-foot build form on the western side along Fern Street. However, because of how big Crystal Houses block is, we are forced to measure that same building from a much lower elevation that was originally prescribed and developed for the entire block. And therefore, what you perceive as a 3-story townhouse form on Fern Street is actually measured as 46 feet in height, and therefore in conflict with the guidance in the sector plan and the CO Crystal City zoning district. And even if you walk by today, you can see we have images in our staff report. There are pretty significant grade changes at that intersection of 18th Street and Fern Street. So this is trying to reconcile what that does when redevelopment is introduced in an infill form of phasing. So the next slide provides kind of a snapshot of what our solution to that is. So to help remedy that conflict, we are simply going to introduce an alternative way of measuring height, which is still getting us to the same outcome as envisioned in the sector plan. But for that singular height category, we can use both feet or stories, whichever is greater. And we believe we can apply that for the entire western edge of the district, since all the areas that you see here in that bright yellow color are also required to deliver residential form of development. So we believe there are no unintended consequences to doing that, and this should solve the issue that larger sites are facing with respect to topography changes and infill development. So we wanted to provide that context, and at the end of the presentation, you'll see a separate motion for the zoning ordinance amendment prior to the site plan amendment. And with that, I'll hand things back to Emma.
Thanks, Matt. So I'll deal with the site plan amendment portion of this item. As I mentioned, it's for Crystal House 7 and 8, specifically located at 1900 South Eid Street in the Crystal Houses development, which was approved with site plan number 451 in 2019. The site is zoned CO Crystal City with a medium residential GLUP designation and is located along the western edge of the Crystal City Coordinated Redevelopment District, as Matt mentioned. The 2019 approved buildings were consistent with the locations provided for in the Crystal City Sector Plan's illustrative plan, and the applicant's providing more public park space than recommended by the sector plan. In addition, the 2019 approval is compliant with residential parking guidelines, as well as the sector plan's recommendations for building height, form, and design, providing a careful and deliberate taper in scale and height westward towards the existing single-family neighborhoods in Aurora Highlands. The approved new buildings were designed to address scale and walkability and are an improvement over the existing conditions at the site. This site plan amendment is generally in keeping with the intent of the December 2019 approval for Crystal House 7 and 8, consisting of 3/6 of multifamily units. The site plan amendment is specific to Crystal House 7 and 8, which are located along South Fern Street, with Crystal House 7 at the corner of South Fern and 18th Street. This image on the right of the slide is taken along the South Fern Street frontage of the site near the intersection of South, where the highlight is shown in the proposed illustrative plan. With this site plan amendment, the applicant's proposing to increase the number of units from 21 to 42, which will increase the residential gross floor area of the two buildings by 42,651 square feet, excluding 1,273 square feet of density exclusions that have been requested for underground parking garage space that the applicant is proposing to use for tenant storage. The applicant's proposing to change the building height by 1 story or 12 feet to incorporate a 3rd story to each unit that will include a loft with a roof terrace. I'll highlight changes to the site and landscape plan and parking in the upcoming slides. While the footprint of the buildings appears generally the same, the applicant's doubling the density by changing the design of the multifamily units. Whereas before there were 3 rows of 7 units on top of a garage with a rear deck, they've now doubled the unit count by splitting each unit in half, with units facing east towards an internal courtyard and west towards South Fern Street. And each row of 7 turned into a row of 14 units, which led to an increase of the ground floor GFA by about 41% as a result of the additional units. The criteria for a percent change to the first floor of the building to be a major site plan amendment is over 20%, and the applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing a change of 41%, which is why this project is being reviewed by Planning Commission. This slide shows the approved South Fern Street or west facade on the left with the proposed facade on the right. The applicant's proposing to redesign the garage layout to reduce the number of parking spaces and to slightly reconfigure access to the Crystal House 7 garage from the rear corner of the building to the side of the building parallel with South Fern Street. The blue highlight here shows the change in the garage entrances for the Crystal House 7 building. Relocating access to the garage will allow each townhouse to maintain independent parking on each lot, as a new proposed central drive aisle within the building will separate the reconfigured rear and front lots. The approved parking ratio for Crystal House 7 and 8 was 94 spaces for 21 units, and the applicant's now proposing 84 spaces for 42 units, resulting in 2 spaces per unit, one of which will be a standard space and 1 compact. The approved parking ratio for the site is 0.65, and the proposed parking ratio is 0.63. The applicant's proposing 32 bike parking spaces, which is an increase of 10 from what was approved in 2019. The proposed parking ratios are in conformance with the guidelines set forth in the county's off-street residential parking guidelines for multifamily residential projects within metro areas. There are 2 changes to the landscape plan that I want to highlight here. The applicant has changed the design of the area between Crystal House 8A and 8B, which they are now calling Hyphen Park. And that's shown in blue here on the slide. And this is a rendering of that Hyphen Park area. And finally, the applicant has introduced a new open space at the corner of South Fern Street and 18th Street South, where Crystal House 7 is located, and that's shown here in green. So this is that new courtyard for Crystal House 7, since there are now units facing the internal courtyard with the new design of the units, which you can see in this rendering. And the applicant has also introduced a staircase leading up to 18th Street from this courtyard. So the site plan amendment was submitted in March. Since then, the zoning ordinance amendment that Matt covered went to ZOCO in July, and staff held a community informational meeting for both the zoning ordinance amendment and site plan amendment in early September. That was followed by an SPRC meeting in late September. This was seen by Transportation Commission in late October, who recommended approval. And after Planning Commission, this will go to the board. So that concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
We do. Nicholas Cummings here with Walsh Clucci on behalf of the applicant. We're excited to present to you tonight. I have with me here Jack Lester and Jack McLaurin, who are going to do the bulk of the presentation. Briefly, before they get going, the original approval for this site was, of course, in 2019. I think it was approved in the same month as the Amazon Met Park project, and it followed a series of SPRC meetings, open houses on the open space itself to design them, and I think was widely considered by most involved to be a very successful project. It was subsequently sold by my former client to the Washington Housing Conservancy, who then donated the infill development rights for these new structures in the parking lot to the county, who then sought a partner to develop this with largely affordable housing. Those partners turned out to be EYA, next to me here, and APA, who is now True Ground. We've previously made changes to CH6, which will be a senior focused building, and to CH3, which is actually just about under construction now. They are starting some early utility work now because we were able to secure funding sooner than we thought. And so that is moving forward full steam. And we are very excited to show you tonight some of the improvements that have been made to our design, both through the public process, but especially over what was approved in 2019. So with that, Jack and Jack, go ahead.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Jack Lester. I'm a partner at EYA. I'm joined tonight by Jack McLaurin. He is a partner as well and leads our design and architecture and land planning at EYA. On the video, we've got Angelina Fuller and Will Carnahan as well, helping us with the project, as well as our consultant team. Between Jack and I, we've been there more than 20 years at EYA. This is what we love and what we're passionate about. We're pleased to be here. As Nick said, we're pleased to be partners with the county, with True Ground, with Washington Housing Conservancy. Being a part of mixed income developments is a core of ours. We're really proud of the fact that we were named for the third time the ULI's winner for the Award of Excellence for Mixed and Affordable Housing. We're also really pleased with this plan and the work that's gone in from staff, from our team of consultants, and from the community input we've gotten over this last year. We think the plan demonstrates many of those, that consensus that we've built with those groups. A little bit about EYA. We're a 32-year-old company. We're about 100 employees. We take on 2 to 3 projects a year. We put all of our effort into developing great communities that fit within the context in which we build, and we are vertically integrated. So at the very beginning, you've got folks like Jack and myself. We build our own homes. We provide the warranty on our homes. We sell and market our own homes. So it's always somebody at EYA you're dealing with. I think we're known for the quality of our communities, our land plan, and our architecture, and I think our customers know us for our commitment to quality. Some project details. As Emma said, 42 for-sale homes. The original plan had 21. We've doubled that. Jack will share the floor plans. We've doubled the dedicated resident and visitor parking space for these units, and we've increased the bike parking to 32. So what these changes from what was approved in 2019 include is more housing, more attainable price points. As Emma said, we've taken that floor plan, cut it in half. So now we've got more smaller units. We've introduced a new unique product type that will serve a diverse market. We've highly designed the open spaces, and we'll talk a little bit about that, including adding a third one where there was 2 in the prior approval. We've included exceptional architecture, and that's on all 4 sides of the building. So you just don't have a front door and kind of a less attractive rear. I mentioned more dedicated parking, more bike parking. We've added short-term lay-by parking. That was a comment that we received from the community. We've improved pedestrian circularity. We've made these more sustainable. We've improved on the stormwater management practices. We've improved on the tree canopy. As we've committed to make these all electric. And we importantly, this product generates more land value for the county to help support and subsidize the affordable housing that's going on the balance of the site. Next slide, Angelina. Okay, and Jack, you can take it from here.
All right, well, we tried to make it easy for you. We're both Jack, so if you have a question, just ask for Jack. What you see here is our proposal in the 3 buildings, 8A, 8B, and 7 that you see there on the top-hand screen. I'll show you a slide later that shows you these footprints are largely the same. And you'll see the green space. This is an illustrative rendering of this portion of the block. Let's just go ahead and go to the next image. What you're seeing here is in red, the prior footprints, and then in black is our proposal. So this is intended to show you that even though we've doubling the density, the footprints and what we call lot coverage is just really largely the same. And in many cases, it's a little bit smaller. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape there. We did change the garage access for CH7, which is the one on the right. It used to come straight up and down off of the last 2 units, let's say, towards the bottom of the page, which is east. And now we're coming in on the end of the building. If we go to the next slide. This is a view of what we call the pass-through park. This is something that is very important to the county. It was in the prior approval. And this is what connects the adjacent communities through the site from an east-west standpoint. So this is pedestrian in nature. And one of the things that we try to do in our proposal is really get into the detail of this landscape design and the grading. In our opinion, the prior proposal hadn't really thought through everything. So what you're seeing here is very well thought through, both in landscaping and grading. You'll see a non-accessible route via the stairs on the kind of the middle of the screen where the road bends, and that's the same road location as it was before. But then on the left, you'll see an accessible route to get you from the public area, from the adjacent communities through the site. There's no gates, there's no fences or anything. It's all open to the public. Now, if we go to the next slide, you'll see another view more from a street level. So now we're looking looking west towards Fern Street, up the staircase. And this is not concrete stairs. These are large plinth block stairs, which are a little bit random in pattern that our landscape architect is proposing, but we feel pretty good about it. He is on the call. I know there might be some questions on plant species, but so he's prepared to go into that detail. If we can go to the next slide. This is what we call our pocket park. Beyond is the wall. You're familiar with the topo of the site. It sits in a bowl. That's CH7. CH7 is on the left-hand side of the image there. And so this area was a bowl, and it was largely inactive before. This is where the garage in the prior proposal was exposed to this elevation because it is out of the ground. It's not buried at this point of the site. And you'll see 18th Street above, which is elevated, and the what we hope is an attractive stone wall beyond, and an ornamental art-like rail there. But now we have front doors on this because the beauty of this proposal is the back-to-back. There's front doors on Fern Street, but then there's front doors interior to the site. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that in a second. So now this park is a lot more activated. Now we're on 18th Street looking down into that same park. Again, I highlight the ornamental iron railing. We know we need a guardrail there. We know it's very prominent. Let's turn it into a piece of art. Let's do something a bit more decorative with it rather than your typical aluminum or guardrail. There was some conversations whether this ought to be solid, opaque versus permeable, visually permeable, which is closer to CH6. And I believe it was solid before because of the view down in this area. But now we feel like we want to open it up a little bit more, provide the safety protection, but open it up visually. If we go to the next slide. Now this is what Emma called our hyphen park. We're standing above Fern Street in a hot air balloon looking east. Again, very well thought out. We don't think the prior proposal really thought through the grade. What you're seeing below that green space is the garage. There is a common garage connecting 8A and 8B. I don't think it was really thought out before. Now we have a pedestrian route that's both accessible through the switchback ramp, but also through the staircase to be a little bit more direct. And we have thought through on how we're going to get large plantings on here. This is the top of a garage, but we've created enough plinth to where we can get some smaller trees up in there. Again, the ornamental iron rail. I should note architecture largely, we appreciated the architecture. There was a lot of work that went into the prior approval. We were okay with it. We did change the materials and the colors based on some feedback from the county, but largely it just changed a little bit to fit our footprint. If we go to the next slide. There's the architecture there. And that's that loft level that is integral to the program. So it's a two-story facade, as Matt showed in that building section, and then there's a roof terrace, and then that loft level set back a little bit. Keep going. This is the garage level of CH7. So this is just to show you, you have a common drive aisle. You come into a secured overhead door on the end, and then each homeowner has their own parking, one compact, one full size. Once they get in that door that you see next to their spaces, they are now in their home. I've only got a couple more, if that's okay. One more minute, that's all I need. Please go, keep going, Angelina. This is the floor plan, garage. You'll see the roof all the way on the left, but you'll see that third level has 2 bedrooms, full bath, and a terrace, which is why it's integral to the program. Keep going. All electric, we talked about that a little bit. We're excited about it. Didn't need the full minute. There we go. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Any public speakers on this item?
Yes, we have Bernie Byrne on the line virtually to speak this evening.
Okay.
Bernie, if you're on the line, please turn your mic on so you can speak, please.
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm so a little confused. This is Crystal Houses 7 and 8, right? Hello?
This is for the Crystal House 7 and 8 site plan amendment.
Right, okay. This project lacks biophilia. There's only a minimal green roof. No plants hang from the roof or climb on trellises. The roof lacks solar panels. These should have enough elevation to accommodate plants that support pollinators needed near them. The site contains very little space for planting to support pollinators. The applicant should install native plants that support pollinators in all tree trenches and in all spaces available near the streets and sidewalk. The plant schedule exceptional land use plan does not contain any milkweeds. The applicant should add common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca, to this plant list. This is the most important food plant for monoclotted caterpillars in the northeastern and midwestern United States. Although common milkweed spreads through its roots, the spread is not rapid. Routine maintenance and mowing can remove from places where it's not desired. The applicant should add black cherry, Prunus serratina, and Sassafras albinum to the planting schedule. These caterpillars, these plants host many caterpillars of many butterflies and moths, including several species of swallowtail butterflies and large silk moths that feed on these 2 trees. The plant list contains 18 trees, shrubs, grass, and ground covers that are not native to Arlington County and its vicinity. Some are on Alexandria's invasive plant list, or may become invasive in Arlington. They may not feed native pollinators. The applicant should replace all with native species. The plant list contains 32 cultivars. Many cultivars are sterile or have deformed flowers. Some are toxic. Many don't have feed pollinators. The applicant needs to replace all cultivars with their native parents. The tree schedule contains Jefferson, American elm. Although some people believe that the Jefferson is resistant or tolerant to Dutch elm disease, any such tolerance or resistance has not been conclusively demonstrated. The parent tree is on the National Mall and is now dying. The applicant should not plant it, but should replace with Princeton. The applicant has not responded to my written messages about these deficiencies. Please therefore ask the county board to disapprove this project if the applicant does not agree to make some or all of the changes to site plan that I've suggested, especially adding common milkweed, which is really important.
Thank you, Mr. Bernie Byrne. That was 2 minutes. Thank you. Madam Clerk, any other speakers? Okay. So I understand this was heard by both ZOCO and there was an SPRC, which I understand was chaired by Commissioner Peterson. Oh, let's start with ZOCO. Please.
If I recall correctly, it was just an informational item. It wasn't too much discussion, but I think ZOCO had a really positive reaction overall, and we didn't have any real concerns, particularly since the footprint is relatively the same as it was approved. But I think it's good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sarli. I should have asked, do the Transportation Commission here? Okay, let's do Transportation Commission and then I'll kick it to you. Transportation Commission, please.
Yeah, this was heard at the last Transportation Commission meeting, and to cut to the chase, it was voted on unanimously to approve. The discussion covered a number of topics, but again, it was more to get some details, but was overall complimentary. We liked the additional landscaping for the to the pathways down between the sticks of townhouses. We like the addition of the stairway along was it 25th Street. That was a nice addition that wasn't there originally in the original plan. We had no concerns about the number of cars in the garage. We did talk about bicycles. Part of the discussion was how the bicycle room between the sticks of 8A and 8B would work. Would the doors be wide enough for cargo bikes? How would that work? And we got satisfactory answers from the from EYA on that. We talked about what would fit in the garages. Again, we had satisfactory answers on all of that. So overall, we were very complimentary about the proposed development, and as I mentioned, voted unanimously to recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lantelmi. Commissioner Peterson, do you have a report for the SPRC?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we had one meeting at the end of September. It was pretty straightforward. The topics that we discussed that came up, native species, as Dr. Byrne referred to, the bike parking, whether people would be likely to park in the shared area versus just in their garage at their actual unit, better site permeability with this new design. Almost everybody was comfortable with the new height. There was some complaints about the windows being too large, which would be bad for energy efficiency, and it looked like that was fixed. That was one of Commissioner Sarli's points. There was a general feeling about they're happy that these units are for sale since we see so many rentals on the market, but they are very expensive. The counter to that is that these units are actually subsidizing the affordable housing that's in the rest of the project. So they need to have market rate for these units. There was concern that the original project had accessible units, but now with this redesign, they are not, because we cannot fit, or the applicant said that they could not fit an elevator in the units. There was some discussion about that, and whether, if they're for private sale, could smaller elevators be an option? And so I think they were going to look into that. I don't know if there's an update. The timeline, the neighbors in particular felt like there is constant construction in the area and kind of wanted some more clarity about what the timeline is for getting these projects built, and will they have a break at any point where there's not construction happening right next door. We had some adorable public comment from two young people, a Boy Scout and an elementary or middle school student, who were both there, and the Boy Scout did public comment, which was very sweet. He was very concerned about the accessibility that I just mentioned. And as far as agenda items for tonight, I thought we might want to talk about the height, in particular related to the zoning change that Mr. Matusik briefed us on, the site design, native species, tree canopy, and the new open space, the parking, bike, as well as car, the accessibility issues that were a big topic during the meeting, and then the timeline. So any of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. I think I lumped a few of the things you just said into some topics. Let me read through that to make sure I covered at least everything you've indicated. Height, zoning changes, and design. I think that's one kind of fair topic. And then open space, biophilia, trees, landscape as another. Transportation kind of issues we mentioned with cars and such was kind of a third. And then timeline, which I understood to be kind of the construction timeline. did I miss anything?
Possibly a conversation about the fact that there were accessible units and now
Okay.
there aren't. But I will say overall, everybody liked the project and we're happy with it. And so there was just a desire to push a little bit more to get the accessible units. But overall, the group liked.
Will you object if I roll accessibility units into the first one for design, height and such? Okay, we're gonna go with that. Okay. Any other topics that folks would like to add to the list, which as it stands is height, design, accessibility, access, zoning change, then biophilia, open space, tree canopy, then transportation, and then timeline for the construction. Any other topics? Okay. We will start with height, zoning, changes, the design and accessibility access. Any commissioners wishing? Okay, Commissioner Steiner? Floor is yours.
Okay, so first of all, I really like the zoning change idea. I think that's effective of sort of capturing the spirit of what we're trying to do, but not having to stick to the letter of it. That's just a comment. In terms of questions I had, or what did I write down? Hold on. Oh yeah, I was going to ask, what is the latest on the accessible units? That was something that we left as a sort of cliffhanger last time.
I'm going to hand that right over to Jack and Jack.
Yes, so you may know hundreds of the units that are being built on the site are accessible. I think I did the math earlier. It was 271 of the new units being added will have accessible features. These will not, and primarily there's a trade-off. We are building smaller homes. We build elevators. I can promise you, we build elevators wherever we can. The challenge is we have to have a minimum dimension size house. You have to have a larger home to accommodate an elevator. So when we build a more attainable product, which is smaller, we can't then offer the elevator. That's just, kind of the geometry of it. Also, given the grade, this site, there's only 3 units of the 42 that have an accessible route to the front door. So you can't even offer an elevator in a home unless, these are HUD rules, but Jack can speak better to that, unless there's an accessible route into the home. So the challenge is, A, there's very few homes, 3 that could accommodate, that could allow it, and the size of this home doesn't practically allow for an elevator.
To add to that, if we redesigned these sticks of townhomes to accommodate the elevator, we're going to lose units, as Jack was saying, and I think we would lose a good amount of them. That then cuts into how many of those units can cross-subsidize the rest of the project, and it leads to a shortfall from what was expected to pump into the project. As part of what we did here to double the density was not just because it quite frankly looks better to have a back and a front of the building and it adds density, which everyone wants. It's reaching a critical mass of funding to help cross subsidize the rest of the project too. So that's another factor here as well.
So at the risk of boring you, I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on the elevators.
Sure.
Is that okay? So I was not involved with the prior design, but it's my understanding, the zoning here is multiple family dwelling. Okay, and the prior solution was a condo solution, and that puts it into there's the zoning categories and then there's building codes, neither of which require elevators on this site. But when you are multiple family dwellings or accordance with the building code, multi-family dwelling, which is defined as an R2 use group, you are now required to provide a minimum of 2% elevators. It's my opinion that's why they provided 2 units. There are no floor plans. They're not thought out. They're just a square on the drawing says we're going to figure this out later. We promised the SPRC room, everybody in the room, to draw it up. We drew it up. But there's some confusion at night on what we are required, what our minimum cab size for the elevator is. In Virginia, the building code enforces the accessibility. It's in Chapter 11 of the International Building Code. As we said before, we are fee simple. We are R3 use group, which is a townhome use group. And we spent a lot of time working with Shariar's group at the plan review office to make sure we could build these as fee simple. You're elevator code requirements are building code and the Fair Housing Act. Okay, both of which say if you are multi-story, you do not have to be accessible. There's different levels of accessibility. There's type A's and type B's. Existing on the site, there's UFAS units, section 504, and there's ANSI type A's, and then everything else type B. We would be type B. There's a minimum CAD size because the building code adopts ANSI, and you have to enter the elevator in a certain direction. So it's a minimum 3x4 cab, which is a 4x5 shaft. The result on the floor plan, and I think we have a slide if you guys care to see it, right? I don't know if it's in there or not, is a 1-car home with 2 bedrooms. So we lose a car and we lose a bedroom. There it is right there. In order to fit that shaft, that was fun. See, you got to be quick. You got to be really quick. It's our effort to confuse you and say, no, trust us. But it's important to note back on the value and the economics to sell a 1-car, 2-bedroom home in this location. We just don't think is viable, which is why early on we didn't do it. The blue is the elevator, and that's that screen is actually skewed. It's not the aspect ratio is a little bit off. It's 4x5 in the blue square. So that's the impact of providing an elevator here. And as Jack said, there's only 3 lots that could really accommodate it because of the flush entry component of the requirements. So in summary, fair housing doesn't require, once you don't have an elevator, you're a multi-story, you're not required to do elevators. Fair housing doesn't require, the building code doesn't require it until you start putting the elevator in there. So that based on the use group, but that's also why they had them before, is they were a multifamily use group.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically
Thank you.
you could do it. It's expensive and it might throw off things, and therefore it doesn't really make sense.
You're going to pay more and you're going to get less.
Exactly.
Right, nobody is buying that home.
Nobody's
honestly,
buying that home.
For the market price.
Okay. Any other commissioners with questions?
And there was a suggestion that maybe it was the Boy Scout. I mean, I agree. What a trooper he was. I mean, he was an amazing speaker, to just put a shaft on the outside of the home. Well, that's per unit. You can't do a common elevator because these are fee simple homes with party walls. And now we'd have a whole nother conversation. What'd you do to the outside of the home? You got this big, shaft on the outside of that architecturally. And
But nothing stops people.
Commissioner
from doing
Schreiner, was your question addressed? Great. Any other commissioners wishing to be heard on that or otherwise? Commissioner Sarley, I think you had a question with regards to elevator access from the garage, maybe I was hearing, or some other question. Ask your question.
I feel like the elevator was covered. I will just say, I'm glad you reached out to Mr. Shariar and had a chat with him, and that you looked into the issue. So thank you for doing that. The question I had was, did you reduce the size of the windows along the front of the building?
we did not.
Okay.
We use highly energy efficient windows. We take in the SHGC, we take in the U factor ratings. You know that we're a part of our Earthcraft multifamily gold program, which has, minimum, maximum envelope calculations and building performance, both on equipment and the exterior skin. Our windows are not going to be an energy issue at all. And we like the large amount of glass. Our buyers really love the large amount of glass.
Great. And then I'll make one quick comment. If you could make the headers or the implied headers exceed the limits of the window, just so it looks like it's bearing on the side. Thank you.
Okay. Coming from an architect.
So with regards to the accessibility question, I mean, I think that's been fully addressed. I mean, certainly, myself personally, and I think this body as a whole, we have a great interest in making sure that developments that are coming forward do have, an appropriate amount of accessible housing options. I understand that many other units with the project will have that accessibility. I understand, for the purposes of, this limited portion, houses 7 and 8, that's not going to be available here. I certainly understand there's a financial need to use these properties to be able to fund the rest of the project, which is going to have, a mix of affordability. And so I'm comfortable from that perspective. I don't think that it undermines the otherwise, interest of this body in seeing accessible properties come forward with accessibility inherent to them. So, while there may be mitigating circumstances that kind of, make that the necessity here, I will go on the record as saying that developers should still bring us accessible units and accessible properties going forward. This, however we end up finding tonight, does not negate that. Anyone else on design, height, accessibility? That's the topic we're still on. Okay. Nope. Commissioner Sarley.
I'll make a quick comment about the height since this is a little bit of a zoning thing. I really support the height. I think transitioning from the residential scale up to the higher tower building makes perfect sense, and I have no qualms whatsoever with the height.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Sarley. I'm ready to take us to topic 2, unless anyone else has a comment or question on topic 1. Okay. Tree canopy, open space, landscaping, biophilia. Anyone wishing to be heard on this item? Commissioner Strainer? Yep.
This is my last question, by the way. So I'm not going to be hogging.
You're allowed to have as many questions as you would like.
A quick maintenance question. Who's going to be maintaining the sort of open space in the path area? Is that going to be you all? Is there going to be HOA involved?
There will be an HOA, and
Okay.
Both gentlemen next to me can speak to how strict and sort of high quality their HOAs are for their communities.
Mhm.
That HOA would be responsible because the developers are responsible for maintaining all of these spaces, including even those that are covered by public access easements or public park easements. There are multiple owners on the block. So some portions of the site will be maintained still by WHC. That's really the sort of land appurtenant most to the existing structures. And then the HOA for CH7 and 8, all 3 sticks. And then True Ground responsible for spaces around their buildings. And there is a agreement that I think the county has even reviewed at this point, like an REA for the entire site. REA meaning like an agreement between the parties about what the responsibilities are for maintenance. So both public parks as well, the corner park and the central park, will be maintained by the developers. It's just there's cost splits, et cetera, among everybody.
Yeah, and do you have like a shared gardener? Because it sounds like there are a lot of different parties involved here. This sounds like a little feudal maintenance structure.
Yeah, I'll take a shot. So what
Sure.
we do on large master plan projects like this one is, and where there's multiple owners, we will have a master property association. So for instance, the roads that serve all the residents, the 2 main parks, and I got this wrong last week at transportation, the connection, the pedestrian connection through our block. Those 3 big green areas will be maintained by the master. Our HOA will contribute to that master fund, as will each of the apartments will contribute to fund those services. On our little footprint, the landscaping, the little lawn area, the trees, those things will be managed and maintained by our HOA. So everyone's going to kind of do theirs inside their property line, and then the master will do all of those common elements.
Got it.
And snow removal, if we ever get it again.
Yeah, thank you.
And so the HOA, they govern the maintenance and the aesthetics, but also the uses. And we're very tight about uses. And for example, what you can do in the garage. You can't convert your garage to a parking space. I mean, we have a zoning, they'd have to come back and get a permit, but also you can't just fill it with boxes and things like that. You got to keep putting your car in there. So both from a maintenance, aesthetic, and use, the HOA is pretty tight.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Open space, biophilia, tree canopy. Anyone else? Okay. The next topic was transportation, the parking garage, cars. Anything in that realm? Okay. Moving right along to timeline and construction. And I think on this one, I'd actually, Commissioner Peterson, could you speak a little more to what the community was saying with regards to some of the concerns on the timeline? Or
Yeah,
if staff
there
wanted to
was
answer
just
that, or
concern from the Civic Association that this neighborhood seems to have perpetual construction, and so they were just wondering about the timeline for this project as it relates to other projects, the phasing, and
staff did.
Yeah, so
Okay, thank you.
there was a member of, I can't remember if it was Crystal House 1 or 2, or a resident who spoke, just wanting to have some more transparency about contact information during construction. So we've included, and the applicant has agreed to, some amendments to condition number 13, which is community outreach during construction. I can share my screen, but basically we're adding that the owner and property manager of Crystal House 1 and 2 shall request that the owner post information of the management company in a publicly accessible and visible location for residents to view, so that those residents are able to stay informed with the construction schedule and have, you know, a publicly available contact in case that they have any issues. That contact is also going to be shared with Aurora Highlands per the already approved condition. So I think they were just, you know, hoping for some transparency in when the timeline of construction might start. And I think the applicant has agreed to keep them informed, in addition to that condition change that we've proposed.
We've met with their residents and presented as well. I wasn't there, but there were meetings with them and we're in regular touch with WHC, who's the actual owner, but not the on-site property manager. And some of you recall that there were some, you know, rumblings about that. We do have a phasing exhibit that I believe is attached to the staff report at this point, because it is referenced into the conditions, because it makes it easier for us to help, you know, promise the county when everything is going to be delivered with the various buildings in different phases. So they linked some of the condition language to that exhibit that'll be then, you know, approved if the board votes accordingly.
Is it
Happy to
possible?
go over that if you
Are you
want.
pulling that up now? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, our team can walk you through.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
we also have a simpler timeline. But once. Go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, I'll just take a shot at this. So we do infill. That's all we do. So we are used to working in tight spaces. Candidly, this isn't as tight as most of the spaces we work in. When the condition was, would you give a name and a phone number? You know, in a lot of places, we put a post with their picture, with our construction manager's picture and his phone number. So we're used to that. Of course, we're going to reach out to our partner, WHC, to the extent that they will share information with their residents. Absolutely, we will give them all of that. One of the challenges, you know, of course, these folks are going to be living through a construction zone for a while. You know, you like to do these things. These things get either done all at once or they're done sequentially. This is done sequentially, so the impact isn't as bad at any given time, the development, but it's bad for a long time. And we're sensitive to that. We know the neighbors across Fern Street are going to be sensitive. We do have areas here to do lay-by to make the construction a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. The timeline basically is we expect to break ground in January of 26 and to be completely done within 2 years, market dependent.
You can see on this
Yep.
exhibit, which is much simpler than the very colorful exhibit that you're welcome to study that's attached to the board report. But, you know, CH3, like I mentioned, has already got into early utility work. They do anticipate a roughly 3-year construction cycle on that. The central park will be delivered with CH3. That's going to happen sort of just at the end of construction of CH3 and just after. And then the anticipation, and obviously there's public financing that has to be secured, potentially county financing. There's other elements that have to come together still, but CH6 would potentially be, you know, somewhat roughly concurrent with 7 and 8. And then CH4 would come after all of that with the neighborhood park. That corner park up there would be delivered with or just after CH4. And then CH5, which is the parking lot next to Restaurant Row, would be the final step, and that doesn't even have an expected initial date yet, and is likely not to even come before the county for the changes that would need to be made for at least a few years. So yes, like Jack said, it's going to take some time. We are going to move through the site sequentially. Hopefully that helps. I really think that with a large site like this, we're in a somewhat better position than, for example, residents in a neighborhood like Ballston, when they were, you know, experiencing 4 or 5 different high rises at the same time in a very, very tight urban environment. That's far more difficult. None of this is as grand or ambitious as, say, the Ditmar Holiday Inn project, which is, you know, a 30-story, you know, 10 FAR skyscraper almost, at least for what we do in Arlington. You know, we're anticipating blasting and other things like that. So hopefully we can work with the community well and address their concerns as we go, but it's never easy and there is going to be some impact.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions or feedback on timeline, construction plan? Okay, thank you. Any other topics, general or otherwise? I'm not. Yes, Commissioner, tell me.
Yeah, not a topic, but just overall, I just want to remind people, I was the chair for the SBRC for the original iteration of this, and it was a good project back then. When I saw proposed changes, my reaction was, this is making a good project even better. doubling the density is exactly where we need to have density, and doing it in a way that does not visually change what really you're seeing is pretty miraculous, I thought. Very cleverly done. This is exactly the type of gentle density that fits for this site. We're metro accessible here. The more people we can get there, the better. So overall, I think this is a very laudable project, and I'm more than happy to go ahead and give my approval of it, my vote for it. So again, I just wanted to thank you for coming forward and thinking through and coming up with I think an even better solution than what we had a few years ago when we first approved this. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lantelmi. Any other final thoughts, questions? Okay. Do we have a motion? I believe there'll be two motions. There'll be a zoning motion and then regular motion. Do we need to do those in any particular order? I think zoning first, right?
Zoning ordinance first.
Zoning ordinance first. Okay, that means Commissioner Sarli. Okay, whom you guys can fight it out.
I'll do it.
Okay, wasn't much of a fight.
There was a contentious issue of the color, which we didn't touch on, so hopefully the community has come to some sort of agreement on that. I jest. All right, I recommend that the Planning Commission, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the Arlington County Board adopt the attached ordinance to amend, reenact, and recodify the Arlington County Zoning Ordinance, Article 7, Paragraph 7.16, to refine methods for establishing a 35-foot building height maximum that accommodates a 3-story form of development for a discrete sub-area within the Crystal City Coordinated Redevelopment District as shown on the General Land Use Plan.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Sarli, seconded by Commissioner Peterson. Any further discussion on the motion before us? Okay. We will move to a vote. I don't know, I start on this side, so I'm gonna start on this side this time. I don't know why.
I'm not ready.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can't help with that.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson. Aye. Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Sarli.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Streiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger. Aye. The motion carries 8-0. Thank you. I don't know. I feel like I was really hemmed in on the side, so I just switched it up because I can. No problem. Also, I like to test myself if I know names out of order because if I always go this way, it's like, But okay. And then I believe there is a second motion for the site plan.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the County Board adopt the attached site plan amendment ordinance for SPLA 24-00012 to revise building and site elements for the Crystal House 7 and 8 buildings, part of the Crystal Houses site plan number 451, with modifications of zoning ordinance requirements, including residential parking ratio, additional density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development subject to all previously approved conditions and amended conditions of the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Streiner seconds. Any discussion on this motion? Okay. Going to the side again. Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Sarli.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Streiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger votes aye. This motion also passes 8-0. Thank you very much. We look forward to your project. Madam Clerk, do we have PC business now? Is that what's next on the agenda?
That's correct.
Okay. What's up first for PC business?
The approval of the meeting minutes of October 7th.
Okay. Can I do that by unanimous consent?
Absolutely.
Okay. Seeking unanimous consent to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from October 7th last month. Okay, so moved and so passed. Did we only meet once last month? Okay, and we only met once last month, so those are the only minutes that I am moving. Great. Do we have any SPRC rosters? Yes. Your mic is not on.
Okay, well, I'll just say first for my SPR chair update, I sent you all an email earlier today. I wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Sarli and Striner for chairing the upcoming 3033 Wilson Boulevard SPRC. And then as far as we have our 2 rosters to amend, I sent around copies of those rosters, and then Commissioner Berkey pointed out there was an error. So there have been updates made again to those as of this late afternoon. So if we can pull those up, please, just so everyone can see them.
Madam Clerk, I can pull those up on my screen if you wouldn't mind, because I have the one.
I have it. Which one are we referring to?
I think both of them needed updates because
Okay.
Chris Latt was listed as Transportation Commission.
I think it was actually only the River House one.
Okay.
Because we did have the correct Transportation Commission contact for the Hotel Pentagon site.
Okay, so then I guess I'll just say, colleagues, you recently received the proposed SPRC subgroup roster amendments for Hotel Pentagon, with the exception of Chris Latt being substituted out, and River House. Madam Chair, I ask for your unanimous consent in approving these rosters.
Hearing no objection, so moved.
Thank you.
What else do we have under general PC business? Commissioner Striner, do you have an update on transportation master MTP updates? No.
No,
Great.
basically I sent you all around the homework that they gave us,
Yeah.
and we're meeting again sometime in December. I forgot the exact date, but it's like the first week of December. But I will let you know what we talk about when we're done.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Striner. Anything else? Zoko update?
Yeah, quick Zoco update. We don't have a meeting scheduled for November. For the December meeting, and I'll probably repeat this at our next PC meeting, we're going to be talking about Columbia Pike Neighborhoods Form-Based Code and some changes and upgrades that are going on that.
Thank you. Do you have a date for that meeting yet?
December 10th.
I found it. It's December 11th for transportation. That's
Is that's your meeting.
Yeah.
That's not all. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Second week of December. So I just
Thank
wanted
you
to
for
clarify
telling us.
for the record.
So noted. Transportation Commission, anything you need to share with us?
Nothing new.
Okay. We don't have, what was the thing that I was chair of? We don't have PFRC anymore because there's no active projects. So thank you. So that's kind of in hiatus. Anyone else who needs to give an update for one of their subcommittees that I'm not remembering right now? Nope. Oh, LRPC. Anyone from LRPC? None of them are here, right? So we'll never know. Okay. So that cover. Oh, sorry. Any updates from staff?
No updates from staff. Thanks.
Okay. Madam Clerk, are we done?
We are adjourned.
Well, no,
Until
not
next
until I
month.
ping the thingy.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. We are now adjourned.